Here in today's video, we're going to be diving into in-game fueling, about how to keep your body topped off during a game at halftime to help ensure that just as well as you were performing in the first half, you're able to keep your body in a state to perform equally as well in the second half while the opposition fades. That's the difference maker. That's what we're going to be focusing on here. And it's a situation and a scenario that we all see all too often from the coach's perspective, players' perspective, parents in the stands perspective. We see it happen a lot, and it is common to notice it to where, again, first half, everybody's sharp, everybody's feeling good, everyone's going out there performing really well. But then in the second half, individual players really kind of start to fade. Those legs get a little bit heavier. They start to make a few mistakes in the box. The passes aren't as crisp. And it just feels as though that explosiveness isn't quite there like what it was in the beginning. And when that's seen, a lot of times the default thought and default reaction is to think the conditioning's not there. They're not fit enough. We need to hit the training a little bit more. We need to run a little bit more. When in reality, it's very likely the fueling piece to where the body's going to be fit, but if the body does not have the energy that it needs to be able to execute what we're expecting and asking it to do, it's going to come up short regardless of how overall fit and conditioned the body is. So you've got two players, both identical fitness levels, but one of them is fueling optimally at halftime while the other just sits there kind of silently and just sipping on water and nothing else. That first player is going to absolutely destroy the second player every single time. And so we want to make sure that we get you in a situation to where you're that first player more often than not. And so when it comes to really helping to separate those two players and to become the one that performs optimally in the second half, there's three real things to be mindful of during the halftime period in particular. The first one is when we come off the field and there is that stoppage in play, we relax, we rest as we should to be able to let that heart rate come down, to let the body be able to recover a little bit. While that's occurring, our muscles start to cool off a little bit as well. And cooler muscles are going to be a little bit slower, stiffer, and more prone to injury when you get back out there if you don't take intentional warm-up time. You want to make sure that you get your muscles warmed back up. Like if you think in the winter, if you step outside and it's super cold, you're not going to feel as great. Your muscles feel super tight. Same thing here. It may not be quite to that extreme, but it's still going to occur. So we want to make sure we warm those muscles up. The other thing is that your fuel, the energy in your body is going to drop across the entire match. So after that first half, the glycogen stores, the carbohydrate stores within your body, that primary energy source that your muscles use is starting to be depleted. We want to make sure that we top that off to be able to ensure that in the second half, we're able to finish strongly. So you may have consumed enough in your pre-match meal and what you were eating beforehand to be able to get through that first half really well. But that first half, we're still running that fuel tank down bit by bit. And if we don't bring that back up, we're going to run out of gas before we hit the finish line, before that 90th minute and that final whistle blows. So we want to make sure that we're replenishing that energy, we're refilling that fuel tank and getting those carbs in. Because not only is that going to fuel our muscles to go out and perform, to do all the tackles, the sprints, get those loose balls and everything there, it's going to help fuel our brains as well. Our brain is going to run on that energy also. So when you're out on the field trying to scan the field, make that next pass from understanding what decision to make, to be able to assess where everybody's at and just know how to go about and react and respond to all those situations, you need to have a sharp mind. And making sure that we've got the energy on hand is going to be key. Just like it's important to have the fuel on hand for that sprint, it's going to be important to have that fuel on hand to be able to make those quick decisions. And there's a whole lot of research to be able to back that up. And so multiple studies, we're looking at this same overall concept. Two of them looking at performance markers, sprint rates, as well as jump heights. They were taking two individual groups, one who did get fueled optimally in between halves, in between sessions, and the other who didn't, who just kind of sat around and didn't necessarily do anything active to replenish. The groups that refueled, that got their body that energy back in, improved their sprint rates by 2.6% and improved their jump height by 7.6%. This may not seem like astronomical numbers, but in a game that can be determined by inches and split-second decisions, this is one of those areas that is a big difference maker. And so, looking at kind of some other areas as well, we see that our muscles lose a whole lot of energy specifically. So, during the actual first half itself, when we are pushing ourselves, we're sprinting, the muscles that are most active get depleted the most. Not surprising. So, up to 50%, those muscle fibers and the specific energy stores that those muscles have get depleted. And so we want to make sure that we are topping those back off, that we are bringing those energy stores back up to be able to ensure that we don't hit 0% towards the end of the game, to make sure that we're able to, again, keep the body in a good spot to be able to perform, do all the things that need to be done to be able to get that win at the end of the game. Then, last but not least, how common is this? And it's incredibly common. 81% of Premier League players in one study fail to hit their in-game carbohydrate fueling target. 81% at one of the most elite leagues in the world. They're not getting the energy in to be able to refuel their bodies as optimally as they could. And part of that comes to the fact that it's difficult to have in-game fueling in soccer. The game is constantly going. You don't get timeouts necessarily. There's the occasional stoppage of play, and we'll touch on that. But this is clearly an area that if you're able to capitalize on those opportunities that you do get to get some energy in, to keep that fuel tank as full as possible, you're going to have that edge. And so when it comes to when are we able to kind of capitalize on things, when are we able to get some of that fuel in to make sure that the body has the energy that it needs, there's three primary time periods that we want to make sure that we're being prepared for. The first one is before we even get to the field, and that's going to be that pre-match meal. Getting that meal in 3 to 4 hours beforehand is really going to help top the energy tanks off. It's going to provide all that energy to make sure that we're starting on the proper foot. The second window of opportunity to be mindful of is at halftime. This is guaranteed. We know this is going to happen. And generally, you've got 15 minutes to make the most of it. And that's a time period where most players, unfortunately, don't prioritize it. They do leave a lot on the table. Don't be one of those. So make sure that you've got some snacks and some sports drinks ready to go for that halftime period to get that energy in. Then the third opportunity is something that can't be planned as much, and this is going to be during the match. It is definitely going to be few and far between when these opportunities arise, but if there are any injuries, if there is any stoppage of plays, those are going to be the only in the sporadic time periods and chances that you're going to have to get some fuel in. So to prepare for that, make sure as best as you're able, based on wherever your position is, if you can keep a sports drink or something on the sideline near where you feel you're going to spend predominantly the most of your time during the game itself, when you get that stoppage period, you can hop on over, grab something real quick. Now, when you do that, make sure that you don't get caught on the sideline when play resumes. But this can be an opportunity. So come prepared, put yourself in the best situation possible if the opportunity presents itself. So to dive a little bit deeper into it, so that first window, that pre-game meal, again, we touch on this in another video, so go check that one out where we really dive into it, but setting the foundation is going to be key. This is what sets everything up to ensure that we are starting on the proper foot and able to help it give us the best odds as possible to maintain our energy. If we have a poor pre-game meal and we're going into the game already with a half full fuel tank, it is a recipe for disaster and almost guaranteed that we're not going to be able to finish strong. So 3 to 4 hours beforehand, give your body time to digest and process everything. Focus on those carbohydrates. The carbs are going to be the primary energy source. We want to make sure that they're there. So pasta, potatoes, bread, rice, whatever sounds most appealing and sits best for you, prioritize that. Get a little bit of protein in there. It's going to be satiating. It's going to provide that fullness factor so you're not starving by the time you head out on the field. and try to keep the fat and fiber content relatively low. Those two things take longer to digest, and if we consume too much of it, it can cause a bit of a cinder block feeling in the pit of the stomach, which we do not want. And then last but not least, we want to make sure that we're using this time period to top off our hydration. Get some good quality fluid in there to be able to ensure that when that first whistle blows, we're as hydrated, as well fueled as possible. Now to dive into the halftime component, this again is a guaranteed opportunity and structured time period to get some energy in. This is what can really help separate two players of who comes out and plays strong for the entire second half and who comes out strong in the first 15 minutes and then just disappears seemingly. So during this time period, you want to make sure that you have some fluid available and that you have some carbohydrates available. This is kind of the situation where sports drinks were designed for. You're going to get the liquid, you're going to get the carbs for energy, and you're going to get some electrolytes to be able to replenish what you lost in the sweat to help your body absorb that fluid. So the overall structure of the halftime piece can be broken down a little bit. So if you've got 15 minutes, that first 1 to 10 minutes, when generally your coach is talking to you a little bit more, focus on the liquids. Make sure you're getting yourself rehydrated because a lot of times too, after a very high intense first half, you may not feel hungry. And if you try to force something immediately from a food perspective, it may not sit well. Now, I will always say, you know your body better than anyone, but in general, this tends to be a tough time period to try to consume anything. So liquids are going to be your best friend. If you have that sports drink, that's going to be phenomenal because again, you get the liquid, you get the fluid to be able to help rehydrate, you get the carbs to help re-energize, and you get the electrolytes to be able to help your body absorb and make sure that we're replacing everything that we're losing in sweat. So that first 1 to 10 minutes, when the body starts to calm itself down, that appetite will start to come back just a little bit, which then allows for minutes 10 to 13, get a little snack in, whether it be a banana, some fruit snacks, any of those kind of sports products of energy chews, gels, goos, whatever sounds most appealing to you, get that in if you haven't already. Then for kind of the final 2 minutes, start by just moving your body again. Get those muscles nice and warm to ensure that when you get back out onto the pitch, you're warm, you're fueled, you're hydrated, ready to go out there and finish the game as strong as you started the game. Then during the match, again, this is where you can't necessarily rely 100% on because you don't know when these opportunities are going to come. But you want to be prepared if and or when those opportunities do pop up. So when you get that stoppage of play, you want to have the bottle ready. Even if it's just water, it is better than nothing. Make sure you've got something to take advantage of that opportunity. Rehydrate yourself, and if it contains some carbohydrates to re-energize yourself a little bit, perfect. 2 birds, 1 stone, but make the most of the opportunity. Because during the entire match itself, we would love to try and aim for if you're able to get 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates, beautiful. If you're able to get a little bit more even, fantastic. But if we can shoot for over the course of the first half, halftime, second half, finishing everything up, if you get 30 to 60 grams of carbs in, you did a bang up job. That's what we should be focusing on, especially if you're a numbers person and like, what should I really be targeting? Now, here are some of the things that a few players tend to get wrong. One of the biggest contributors is at halftime, only drinking water. Water's fantastic. I'm not trying to knock it, but in this situation, when we are trying to get so much into the body in such a short time period, we need to take advantage of the opportunities that we have. And this is where the sports drinks are going to come into play. Take advantage of consuming the carbohydrates while you're getting the fluid all in one go. So make sure that we've got a sports drink readily available. Make sure, even if you don't have a sports drink, that water you're consuming is paired with a carbohydrate snack. And if it's something like pretzels, you've got the carbs and the electrolytes in there. The salt on that pretzel is basically giving you a makeshift sports drink to where, as opposed to just drinking it all in one, by combining the two, you get that. But it's the fluid, it's the carbs, it's the electrolytes. Make sure you take advantage of halftime. The second thing is make sure that you are starting as soon as halftime begins. We want to ensure that we begin that process of getting it in, so we're not trying to cram everything in at the very end to where we're trying to chug a lot of fluid, we're trying to eat a whole lot of food, and we're trying to move our body to warm our muscles up. Take advantage of that full 15 minutes. Try to distribute that as best you can to avoid trying to cram it all in at once. The other one is kind of treating halftime like a TV timeout, to where you're just nonchalantly being super passive about it. You're not moving at all, and you're just kind of sitting there, and the muscles become pretty tight. You still want to move a little bit. You still want to keep the body feeling good, keep the muscles active to ensure that when you step out there again in the second half, the first 5 minutes aren't you spent just trying to get the muscles fired back up and reacclimated. Then the other big one is individuals sometimes think it's a good idea to try a new food on game day, of a new sports food, a new sports drink that they've never had before. Or like, oh, let's give it a try here. Horrible idea. Anytime that you're consuming something on game day, you want to make sure that it's something that you've had during training. No new foods on game day. You want to be very confident and have zero doubt in your mind of what you're putting into your body and knowing exactly how your body's going to respond. So if you want to try something new, which I'm always supportive of trying new things, try it during training. Make sure that you put yourself in as close to a replicable situation as to what a game is, to see how your body truly does respond. So if it's a new beverage, take it to practice, keep it on the sideline, drink it beforehand as well, to assess how does your body feel. Because we would much rather have a poor practice than a poor game every time. Now, yes, we want everything to be optimized, but if we have to pick a trade-off, we want to make sure that it's the practice that takes a little bit of a hit. Here are some of the common questions around this that have tended to kind of pop up between the players and parents that I talk to. And the first one is, what should an athlete drink at halftime? This comes back to sports drinks. This is what sports drinks were made for. This was the intent of being able to provide the fluid, the carbohydrates, the electrolytes. All three things that the body is using a lot of during that first half is getting replaced in one single product to help streamline the process. So at halftime, Gatorades, Powerades, those are going to be fantastic. And if you want to basically make shifts and piece things together to create your own, having something like water and pretzels, absolutely fantastic. Again, you get the fluid from the water, you get the carbs from the pretzels, and you get that salt on the pretzels as well. Then the next question is, will eating at halftime upset my stomach? This comes back to the concept of you know your body better than anybody. Focus on the foods that you know sit really well. If a banana sits well for you, have a banana. If it doesn't sit well for you, don't have a banana. Don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. But 9 times out of 10, we want to be consuming something at halftime. And if any food at all feels like it's not going to sit well, liquids are going to be the best bet. Liquids are going to get in and out of the stomach relatively quickly and decrease the odds of any upset stomach popping up. So again, this is where sports drinks can be incredibly beneficial. But at the end of the day, we do want to be consuming something to replace what we lost in that first half. And if you're not doing that and you feel uncomfortable with anything, practice and train your gut during training, during the middle of the week. Just like we can train and condition our muscles in our body, we can train our stomach to be able to tolerate these things. So implement some of those strategies during practice, acclimate the stomach a little bit to be able to tolerate it during the games, to ensure that we're making the most of those opportunities to go into the second half well hydrated and well fueled. Does this work for younger players? Does this strategy of consuming these sports drinks, having the halftime snacks apply for younger players? And it is a resounding yes. And a big part of this too is kind of from the fact that a lot of times younger players are smaller players because they're still growing, haven't necessarily fully matured and developed quite yet. So the glycogen stores that their body holds onto, those energy tanks, are also going to be a little bit smaller. So they're not going to be able to reserve as much, hold on to as much from the very beginning. So even more so, I would say, for some of the younger players, we want to make sure that we've got those snacks, that we've got those beverages to be able to help top everything off, to be able to ensure that they're going into the second half feeling good, feeling confident to go and perform their best. Now, to recap everything and how to piece this get together of what to focus on here for the upcoming week to start to implement some stuff. The big thing is don't try to overhaul everything all at once. Take it step by step, piece by piece, and figure out what that one particular area is to focus on first. And so the way to go about that is pick one match. Choose an upcoming game, whatever that may be, that you want to focus on. And if you're trying something new and it is a new strategy, have it be the hardest training session day of the week at practice to replicate that real match kind of scenario. Pick that day and commit to testing the halftime protocol. Practice that halftime setup of making sure that you've got the sports drink ready. Any carbohydrate snack that you're thinking of having, have that ready to go as well. And be able to make sure that you implement it during that session, that you execute from a timing perspective what that would look like and feel like as best you can. And then make sure after that little bit of a down period, you go through that warm up again to be able to make sure that you get that 15-minute feel of what all that would be. And then pay attention to just how do you feel after that? What changes are there? What do you notice from a physical standpoint, a cognitive standpoint? How mentally sharp are you with everything? To be able to assess, do you feel better? And be able to, again, start to piece together what your body responds best to. Everybody's halftime strategies are likely going to be a little bit different because everybody's body is different. Everybody responds a little bit differently to different things. So when trying things out, be mindful, be aware to how you do respond. And then once you find those things that really resonate with you, that have you feeling as good as can be come the second half, build the habit around all of that. Make sure that we set ourselves up to be able to have that be repeatable, to be able to ensure we've got all the proper products that we need. We're purchasing everything that we may need in advance to have the sports drinks, the pretzels, or whatever on hand. So that way, come game day, there on forward, it's automatic. You know what to do. You've got everything in place. When that halftime whistle blows, you know where you're going, what you're grabbing, what you're drinking, what you're consuming, and when you're doing it. The more that you do it, the more that it becomes habit, and the more that it's just going to be the default that your body goes to, and you're not going to have to think about it.